I'm 76 years old, and there are 5 things that, if I could go back in time, I would never have told anyone, not friends, not coworkers, not even some family members. And look, I'm not saying this from the position of someone who always knew better. I'm saying it because I made these mistakes, I paid the price, and I still feel the weight of them. I'm not here to sound wise. I'm not here to impress anyone. I'm here because time is running out, and I don't want you to go through the decades of pain I went through by simply not knowing when to stay silent. So let's dive in, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you about each one. Let me take you back to an office barbecue. Summer of 1998. I was 48, at the peak of my career as a financial advisor. Cold beer in hand, smell of burgers on the grill, casual conversations about golf, kids, vacation plans, and then a colleague, let's call him Mike, asked casually, "So, are you thinking about retirement yet? Like, how much do you think you'll need?" It was an innocent question, or at least it seemed to be, and I, feeling good, feeling generous, shared a number, not exact, but close. Said something like, "Oh, I'm aiming for about 1.5 million, already halfway there." Mike smiled, patted me on the back. We moved on. 3 weeks later, he called me. Different tone. He and his wife were in trouble. Money problems. Needed 20 grand as a loan. "Just until I sort some things out, man. You know I'm good for it." And there I was, stuck. If I said no, I was a guy who had money but wouldn't help a friend. If I said yes, I was handing over 20 grand based on a barbecue conversation that suddenly felt like a trap. I said no. And our friendship, never the same again. He avoided my eyes in the hallways, stopped inviting me to lunches, and I felt, not guilt exactly, but something worse. I had created that situation. I had handed over the ammunition. And that's when I learned something I should have learned decades earlier. The wrong information in the wrong hands isn't a communication error. It's a weapon you handed over yourself. So, first thing, you should never share your salary and your savings. And I know what you're thinking. But salary transparency is important. It helps close the pay gap. And you're right. Sometimes it is. But there's a huge difference between sharing within a specific context and just throwing numbers around casually. When two people sit down and compare salaries or savings, usually one person walks away feeling something bad. Disappointment, anger, envy, resentment. And very rarely is there anything to gain. Now, I worked as a financial advisor for 30 years. I needed to know how much my clients earned, how much they'd saved. It was part of my job to help them. A mortgage broker needs to know. An estate planning attorney needs to know. But a coworker, a neighbor, a distant cousin, no, they don't need to. And most of the time, sharing only creates imbalance. Because, see, money isn't just numbers. It's power. It's identity. It's security. And when you reveal how much you have, you're changing how people see you. Suddenly, you're the rich guy, or the guy who should be doing better, or the guy who's failing. And once that information is out there, you can't take it back. Second thing, never reveal if you're thinking about quitting or retiring. Not until you're ready to control the narrative. Let me tell you about a client of mine. Let's call him Tom. Tom was 62, planning to retire at 65. Solid, on track. And in a casual conversation with his manager, he mentioned, "Yeah, I'm thinking about retiring in about 3 years." Seemed harmless. Until 6 months later, the company started restructuring. And guess who was on the chopping list? Tom, not because he wasn't good, but because they knew he was leaving anyway. So why not help him out early? Tom lost 3 years of salary, lost a substantial bonus that would have been paid out in January of the following year, and worse, he lost control. He didn't choose the timing. The company chose for him. And here's the thing. Many companies pay bonuses based on the previous year. So if you retire in December, you miss the January bonus. If you reveal your plans too early, the company can help you exit at the time that's best for them, not for you. Keep your plans close to your chest. There may be a strategic moment to reveal, especially if you're negotiating changes that would make you stay. But that's different. That's you choosing when and how to reveal, not casually slipping it into a coffee conversation. You want as much control as possible over when you leave, because once you let it out, you've given someone else power over your timeline. Now, the third one might sound technical, but man, this one matters. Power of attorney. Power of attorney means you're giving someone the legal power to sign documents in your name, make financial decisions for you, act as you. And there are times when you might need this. If you have a stroke, if you become incapacitated, if you can't manage your own finances. But outside of those extreme scenarios, giving that control to someone is a risky move, even if you trust them. I had a client, let's call her Carol, 71 years old. After her husband passed, she was feeling overwhelmed with finances. Her daughter offered to help. "Mom, give me power of attorney. I'll take care of the bills, make sure everything gets paid. It'll take the stress off you." Carol trusted her daughter, gave her broad power of attorney. 6 months later, Carol came to my office in a panic. Her account was empty. The daughter had transferred everything to her own account, claiming she was protecting the money. But she wasn't. She was using it. Carol had to hire a lawyer, had to sue her own daughter, and even then, she never got it all back. So if you ever need to give someone power of attorney, work with your own attorney, not their attorney, not a family friend, your attorney, someone who has a fiduciary duty to you. And make sure there are limits, oversight, structures. Trust is beautiful, but trust without structure is just vulnerability. Fourth thing, and this one cost me. Never reveal what you really think of your boss or people you don't like. Not to co-workers, not to casual acquaintances, not even to your kids if they're too young to understand discretion. I had a boss, let's call him Richard, and Richard was difficult, micromanager, changed his mind constantly, played team members against each other, and at a lunch with a colleague, I vented, said what I really thought, talked about how unbearable Richard was, how he was holding the team back, how I didn't respect him. It felt good to vent, until that colleague unintentionally, or maybe intentionally, mentioned it to someone else, who mentioned it to another, and eventually it got back to Richard's ears, not word for word, but enough. From that day on, Richard never saw me the same way. I didn't get the promotion I was expecting. My projects got reassigned, and worst of all, I knew it was my fault. I had given him reason to shut me out. Your boss is human. They have an ego. They have power over your career. And the last thing you want is for them to think you despise them, especially if it reaches them in a careless way. If you need to vent, vent to your spouse, or to a therapist, or to a friend outside your work circle, but keep it away from anyone who could, even accidentally, let it slip. The fifth one is tricky, and I say this with some hesitation. Be very careful about revealing serious mental health issues. Now, let me be clear. There's a real stigma around mental health, and I hate it. When COVID started, I had anxiety for the first time in my life. I sought professional help, and I was open about it because I thought it was important to normalize. But there's a difference between situational anxiety and long-term conditions that people might not understand. I knew someone, let's call her Lisa. She had a diagnosed anxiety disorder, well managed with therapy and medication. She was doing great. But she mentioned it to her manager during a performance review, thinking she was being honest, transparent. 3 months later, she was passed over for a promotion. They never explicitly said it was because of her mental health. But she knew. They found other reasons. Not ready for the next level. Needs more experience. And the problem is that, particularly in work environments, people make assumptions. They think mental health means unpredictable, unreliable, a risk. And yes, it's wrong. But it happens. So if you have a serious mental health issue, share it with people who need to know. Your doctor, your therapist, maybe your spouse or a close friend. But be strategic about who else you tell. Because, unfortunately, the wrong information in the wrong hands can cost you opportunities. And here's a bonus, because this is becoming increasingly important. Never share passwords. Not even with people you trust. I used to be careless with passwords. Use the same one for multiple accounts. And once, I gave my email password temporarily to an assistant so he could respond to some messages while I was away. Didn't think much of it, until I realized that same password was the one I used for my online banking accounts. And my assistant, without bad intentions, mentioned it to someone else, and suddenly, my security was compromised. Fortunately, I realized before anything bad happened, but it was a wake-up call. These days, I use a password manager, and if I need to share access to something, I use secure features that don't reveal the actual password. Because your email, your finances, your online identity, these are the keys to the kingdom. Protect them like they're diamonds, because ultimately, they are. So here's the truth I learned at 76. Information is power, but only when you control who has it. And if I could go back, I would guard these 5 things, these 5 categories of information, as if my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. My relationships, my career, my financial security, my peace of mind, all were affected because I didn't understand this. So let me ask you, are you protecting your peace, or are you handing out ammunition without realizing it? Think about the conversations you've had in the past week, in the past month. Did you share something that, looking back, you should have kept to yourself? If so, don't blame yourself. I did it for decades, but now you know, and knowing is the first step. There's a photo on my desk. It's from that office barbecue I mentioned, summer of 1998. I'm there, smiling, holding a beer, with no idea that the casual conversation I was about to have would change how I viewed trust, information, and relationships for the next 26 years. I look at that photo sometimes, and I think, if I could go back and whisper one thing to that man, it would be this: be careful what you reveal, because you can't unreveal it. So if this prevents you from making my mistake, if it saves you from decades of regret, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because the clock is ticking for all of us. And we don't have much time left to fix the mistakes we create by simply talking too much. If you enjoyed this video, I think the next video of mine you'll enjoy is this one here that the YouTube algorithm picked just for you. Thanks for watching this one. See you next time.